Here's a common question I get from students. How do I organise my voicings to create comps and chord melodies? Well, the simplest answer is stop thinking about chord roots and start thinking about the melody. Hi everyone, welcome to Jazz Guitar Scrapbook. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing and all that good stuff. There's also a comment section below where you can tell me I'm wrong. Okay, so today I'm looking at things in a guitaristic way. So we're using grips, what I call practical fretboard harmony. This is kind of like the way a lot of people, some of the best guitarists of all time actually, such as Jim Hall, Joe Pass, Peter Bernstein, even some modern players like Mike Marino, organise the fretboard. And very often you'll find they're playing very commonplace grips, standard grips that you might find in your average chord dictionary or online jazz guitar course. There are much more systematic ways to go about all of this. Perhaps the best known at the moment is the Barry Harris scale of chords, for instance. But I think, there's other videos on this, and I just want to do something that's guitaristic and accessible today. So I think on guitar, we are most used to viewing the chords from the bottom up, usually from the root or bass. So for instance, we see the B flat in a chart, and then we see the B flat 13. We play the chord quality. And that's a grip without really thinking about the individual notes. We just go bang, B flat 13, shape. And I kind of still do that a bit, to be honest with you, to this day. I'm like, oh, it's a B flat 13. Bang, there we go. The good thing about making a chord melody arrangement or working out some of these comps, in both cases we're harmonizing a lead line, a melody line. The main conceptual thing we have to do, the main leap we have to make is instead of labeling these by, inversion or name, what we're going to do is we're just going to think about them in terms of the melody note. In the case of a standard tune, that's one that's already provided. And for our own comps and our own little voice leading things, that's somewhere where we can make it up a bit. The procedure, though, for actually putting chords to these things is more or less the same. I'm going to focus on one of the most basic standards that we all learn, which is Autumn Leaves, the first section of that. I'm going to be using the simplest type of melody, which is a repeated single note, and this will give us a chance to explore basic principles. So over this kind of pedal note we're going to use. And let's get started with my favourite shell voicing. So these are just roots, thirds and sevenths, and these are just simple shapes, just going through the chord progression like that. So C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7th, E flat major 7th, A minor, D7, G minor 6, the classic cycle 4 chord progression there. And you'll notice there's actually already a melody line here. Ya da da da, ya da da. This ties in really well with the melody actually. Yeah, so you can see that actually the top notes of these chords relate really well to the melody line of Autumn Leaves, at least that first section. So we're going to move away from that today, and actually what we're going to do is we're just going to use a pedal F note, this one, through the entire progression. Why are we doing this? And we're going to go up to F sharp here. It's nice just on that G minor major 7th chord, because I think this is a little bit, you could do a G minor 7th like this, but I think it's a little bit milk and two sugars. I'm not really into that. Okay, so in each case, apart from the last chord, we have the shell voicing with the F added on top. You could do this with, different notes. We're not limited to that one necessarily, but it kind of gives us a really nice richness when we get to that bit. And then the F sharp is just the icing on the cake. This might be too much, by the way, if you're comping for a singer or a soloist or something, but it is a nice thing to play around with. And actually, there's something about comping with a pedal tone, a repeated note on top. Which actually works quite well for comping, I think. Okay, so you could just have the F for the first 4 bars like that, and then move to a D. And that sounds good. So no reason why you couldn't do that. I just kind of like how kind of colourful the F gets, these two chords, and then how we can have the F sharp there. The only thing about that is I don't really like this chord. it's a bit boring. How can we swap it out for something more interesting? Well, we're going to go into our collection of common grips. So what's the melody note here? Well, it's an F. What's the root? It's also an F. So the root is in the melody. And we need to find some chord grips for dominant chords. Doesn't really matter too much about what other notes are in them. But we're going to find some kind of dominant chord that has the root in the melody. So here's one of my favourites. This is an F13. This runs like this: flat 7, third, 13, root. And we've got the root in the treble there. We've got an E flat in the bass, which is nice. It's kind of a third inversion dominant. I mean, you could play this, which is a dominant chord, straight dominant 7th. But I think this is a little bit more crunchy. And another one we could use is this, which is depending either an F7 sharp 11th or an F7 flat 5. Now we have the flat 5 or sharp 11th in the bottom, 3rd, 7th, root, flat 7th, I should say. In fact, you could play them all one after the other. You could even do this. Yeah, I'm not thinking about the voice movement really. I'm just tying these all together with the top note, but it so happens that I think the voice movement between those different F7 grips is quite interesting. By the way, you're not limited to just using F7. You could use really any chord with an F on top, and this takes us into the world of sort of chromatic reharmonization and all sorts of things. But a nice one to use might be the A flat 13 there. The F is there on top. And this is a backdoor dominant, so it's actually not that strange. We could go. So you can get a lot of movement there, like I'm playing a chord on every beat. We can do this for any of the chords. So for instance, we might want to use that instead of the standard C minor 11th grip. That's a C11 or B flat over C. We could use that one, for instance. It's kind of a all-purpose modern neo-soul-y jazz chord there. It's nice as well. I like the thirdless voicings of major sevenths. Maybe for this, you could even change the chord quality slightly, turn it into a 7 flat 13, which is not unusual at all for G minor, by the way. 2-7. See it in lots of tunes. And then this is the. Or you could even play C9 sharp 11th there. But this is the. It's a G minor 6th major 7th chord voicing there. I'll just play a few little variations through so you can get an idea of some of the basic possibilities. We could be more kind of a little bit more chromatic even, just using the same principle, using the F on top. But that's kind of another video. But hopefully that'll give you some ideas about how you can start using some of your own chord vocabulary. You can curate your own vocabulary of chords, sorry for using that word, but just voicings you like. None of this is particularly systematic. I'm not using drops or anything particularly. I think all of my voicings have four voices in. So there is that. That helps promote a sense of voice leading. But there's no sort of systematicness about what kind of voicings I'm using. I'm just using whatever grips come to hand, really. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit of scalar movement now to the dominant chords. I'm going to do this using a very common melodic cliche on a dominant chord, which you'll hear, for instance, in this West Montgomery line I play all the time. Flat, sharp 9, flat 9, root, you know, also Donna Lee. Yeah, we can turn this into a chordal thing. The simplest way would just be simply to have our little F7 shell and use that moving note. And that's nice. I mean, you end up on the F again, by the way. But it might sound more interesting to have a bit of movement within the chords, and for that we just simply use different grips. Sharp 9, we could use that one as well. Let's use this one. 13 flat 9 for the flat 9 there. We we're going to use this sort of B7 sharp 11th or F7 flat 5 shape here. Here's the B flat. So let's try that in context. So we can also use that on this chord, of course, as well. So the whole thing will then sound like this. Because we're ending up on the D, I'm kind of putting the major 7th there in the middle of the chord. So these are the basic principles. The thing to take away from this is that we need to organise our chords from the melody down and then find ways of setting them with whatever melodies we choose. You can be very free with this, but at first I think just trying different grips for the same basic chord colour, dominant, major, minor. But that's really it. As long as you know what the melody's doing, you can be very creative with what chords you use. Now, the only thing I would say is, like, in this example, we're kind of imagining there's going to be a bass player here. I might overdub one in later. The reason for that is actually the inversion is quite important. You don't necessarily want to always play everything in inversion. But if you're playing with a bass player, that bass player will be handling the root note. I hope you find that useful. Let me know what you think, and I might go deeper into this concept if people are interested in the approach. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.